Alright, so we thank God for yet another day to continue our study. So, last time we started talking about classification. We know about the importance of classification, then we look at the taxa, a little briefly about the taxa and some types of classification, where we talk about Aristotle's way, or let me say, pioneering work that he did on classification. Then later we talk about hierarchical classification that was introduced by Carolus Linnaeus 1708 1778, and over 300 years now, 325 years or more than that, we have still been using Carolus Linnaeus system of classification. So we will now dive much into the classification that Carolus Linnaeus brought, that's the Swedish botanist that brought. So these are the forms that we talked about last Wednesday. We talk about the cladistics that talks about the clade or arrangement of them like a family tree based on physical appearances or evolutionary appearance or characteristics. Then later we talk about the one that refers to the phylogenetic, which is just like the family tree, but this one's more into the DNA or molecular characteristics. Then we talk about the numerical, which is based on similarities. So how many things we have in common. Then based on that, we can do some computation and say that, oh, this one is related better to this organism, so let's keep them at one place and the other. So then what we'll talk about today is natural classification and artificial classification. So we'll be talking about natural classification and artificial classification. So I will invite anyone who have read or can see my screen your understanding that you get from natural classification and artificial classification. So I invite anyone that is ready. You raise up your hand and you talk to us. If you are new to this lesson, as usual, I advise you to read from the books that I've been giving you. If you find it difficult and convenient to also go to the YouTube channel and watch some of the previous lessons, you can also do so at any time of the day. So as usual, I'm recording this lesson to be posted over there. Latest by Tuesday morning, it will be ready for you to go and watch. So if lessons are there, if you're joining us new and you don't understand anything about this, we can't go over. Sorry for that. Go back and read from the handout that I gave you, or you can go to the YouTube channel. I've always been sending the links to you. Go there, subscribe if you have done so, turn notification button to get prompt whenever I upload a new lesson. Matadapra, you are welcome. It's been a long time I saw you on our study channel. So I welcome all of you, those that I'm seeing for first time and those that actually join. Sorry if I've not seen your name or I have not recognized you. So thank you. You're welcome. Okay. So I asked the question. Anyone that is ready can come on board and try to explain to us. So it's on my screen now. So you understand about natural classification and artificial. So today our objective is to look at the forms of classification. We will talk about the taxa, sorry, the domain and the different taxa under them, kingdom, phylum, class, other family, genus, species, and other things. Then if we have enough time, we will start talking about the life process of amoeba proteus. Then in the next, up to Wednesday, we will finish that with of euglena, and I think the last one that will be either Spirogyra. Then we move to week 7, ecology. Then off we finish first semester studies. So you can show by hand if anyone is ready. I want to make today's one interactive so that at least you'll be talking, it will be more of teacher centered. Since it's online, I'll be doing most of the things on your behalf. I don't think the hand is up yet. Alright, so let me just talk about them straight away. I don't want to waste a lot of time. So please kindly read the hand that I've been giving you. Because always usually I give it to you a week or two, sorry, yeah, some days before we start the lesson, maybe 3 days or so before the lesson starts. So when we talk about natural classification and artificial classification, natural classification is more like using the natural features, or let me talk about the it could be the evolutionary traits or how God created them. So it's like how they are made. That is a classification. So we talk about evolutionary history and shared characteristics. So how they were created, the linkage between them, it could be genetics or evolutionally, how they emerge. That is natural classification. And that is what Carolus Linnaeus also did. So his work was a natural classification. That of Aristotle too was about natural classification, but that was superficial. So natural classification is based on natural relationships. So that is how they are made, and it could be through their evolutionary history. So for instance, human and apes, as we look at, we have some traits. So we talk about all mammals. We are symbolized or unique because of our presence of notochord and also our backbone, well-developed brain covered by fair hair, all these things. So that is a unique, a common thing that try to relate us together. So that would be a natural classification, and that is more details, more characteristics are being talked about or be in the center of their features. So this is natural classification. So example what Aristotle did and what later Carolus Linnaeus did, and he brought the hierarchical classification. Now the artificial classification is based on arbitrary, so it is not systematic. It is just, let me say, impromptu or just since that we break, it's not systematic. It doesn't follow any order. It could be any way. So for instance, big and small, maybe round, fruit that are round, animals that walk on their foot, animals that have shell. So that is just arbitrary. It doesn't move any deeper. That is it's just flexible, that any way you can classify them. So that becomes the artificial classification. So for instance, we can group we can say fruits that are edible. So you see apple and banana will be in the same let me say in the same classification, but they are very very different. Rather is plantain and maybe plantain and how do you call it, banana and those things, that will be in the same group. But when we are talking about fruits, but you just said my voice is not clear. So if my voice is not clear to you, to let me know. I don't know whether it's because of a network. I think today my voice look a little bit shaky. Yeah. But if you can hear my voice, let me know. You can give a thumbs up, then we will continue from there. Someone just complained. Vanessa said it's okay for her. Sorry. Okay, so please check your network, and I'll try and speak a little bit louder. I think today my voice, okay, Lena, free your princess, my voice is down. Okay, thank you very much. Very good. So I've cleared my throat. I'm sure my voice will be a little bit up and projected for you. So I'll try and project my voice a little bit higher. So the artificial classification is based on arbitrary standards. So it's not a fast and hard rule as the natural will be, but this one is just an impromptu. It could be any other ways we are classifying them. So for instance, we can say we can group animals to whether they are domestic or they are wild. So in this way, the cat and the dog will be domesticated animals. But how familiar are they? How similar is the dog to the cat? They have miles of away. They get it. But look at the leopard or the tiger. That might look like the cat because they are all cats. But since the cat is domesticated and the leopard is in the bush, you see that they are kept under different groups. That is the arbitrary. So we are using, it could be color and shape. Maybe the color of the fruit, the shape of the fruit that are poom. It doesn't mean that they are the same. Like tomato and the grapes, they might have the same shape, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they are the same. So like the turkey berries and berries, although they are all berries, but they are vast of the distance away from each other. That is the artificial classification. What you see. So fruit can be grouped as either edible or not edible or poisonous. We can talk about edible with the with the outer skin, or the outer skin is not edible. So for instance, banana we will peel it, but mango you can eat the skin with it. Apple everyone eats the skin with it. So these are differences that we can create based on the arbitrary standard. So that one is just observable, what you can see. But the natural classification is not just what you see. It could be what you see, but it goes deeper into their characteristics, inner one that we can see, and even their genetics or evolutionary structures. So that is the actual way of classifying them But for instance, if I give you some items in a biology lab or class and I say differentiate them, you classify them. Maybe you group leaves together, you keep those that are simple leaf, that are compound leaves together, and you keep those that are branches at a different place. That is based on what you can see. That is just a solution you can create, an impromptu or just any other system that you have created to differentiate them. You have spotted a difference and you are creating it. But naturally, you can't put maybe tallow leaves closer to maybe acacia leaves because they are different ways, miles away. Not the same. They might be, yeah, they're in the same class, but when they come down, they are from different orders. As we come down, species are very, very vast different. So you keep them together as leaves because they are all leaves. That become arbitrarily. So that is the system that you have chosen to classify or differentiate them. But natural classification is the actual classification taking into consideration a lot of characteristics and evolutionary traits. So that is the natural classification and artificial classification. So one is superficial, that's artificial, and the natural is in depth. It talks about a whole lot of things that hovers around their similarities. So we can also use this to differentiate them. So you can check my screen as I scroll down. So we have a feature that is the base of classification. So we can differentiate, and I'm sure this will make most of us understand very, very better. So under natural classification is based on natural relationship such as their shared characteristics. So what features do they have in common? That is natural classification. But arbitrary is criteria that you have chosen. So why did you put the taro leaves closer to the, let me say, acacia leaves? Because you see all of them to be leaves. That is, you are understanding either it's a compound, lanceolate, any type ovale, any type of leaf, you don't care. You just kept them together because they are all leaves. You will keep root at one side, you will keep shoot at one side, and you keep seed in another bowl. That is your system you have chosen to differentiate them. But the natural one is what has been in place, the system and the norm everyone ought to use when classifying or grouping them into groups. So the criteria for classification is considers overall similarities and evolutionary history. So under natural classification, you try and consider all the similarities that embodies or talks about the organism, and also the evolutionary history. What is their trend? Is there anything that links them together that makes them familiar, or we can trace them to a common ancestor based on the theory of evolution? Then natural classification. But artificial classification considers specific and easily observable features. So something that you can just see so that momentarily you can create a difference or a similarity and group them. So you are just doing something out of a blue moon just to classify them, and that might not be the natural way of classifying them. Though some of them could be the natural way, but it will not be so detailed as to create a distinct similarity and differences between them and other species. And the flexibility, when we are using the natural classification, though we consider a lot of things, but it becomes as flexible. The reason is more information about the organism becomes available. So we are not just using the color, not just the color. We can talk about the arrangement of it, the seed, the shape, the family, the class. So a lot of things are being considered. So if you just group the leaves that I mentioned just because they are leaves or just because of their color, they are all green leaves. It doesn't make them the same. So you check, are they compound leaf or simple leaf? What is the shape? Is it lanceolate, ovale, or is this and that? So you look at all of these things, then you can create a reliable and flexible classification among them. So though the natural one embodies a lot of differences and a lot of characteristics, it is very flexible because more information is being known about the specific organism we are talking about. Unlike the artificial one that we are using just one or two differences, is rigid because it is this or that. If it's not the shape, there's nothing else we are talking about. So you see, it doesn't become flexible. It's a strict way of classifying them. We are looking at your shape, we are looking at your size, we are looking at your number. Are you edible or not? If you are not edible, that is all. But under the natural one, we have a lot of features. So even if you have this and you don't have that, we could a little bit ascertain that yes, you belong to this particular group or that particular species. So the purpose of classification naturally is natural classification aims to understand the natural relationship and diversity of living things or life. So we look at how diverse organisms are. Though they are diverse, some of them can be grouped or similarly they are diverse. To get the point, although we are different, but similarly some of them will be more different than the other group. So we look at how diverse organisms are and how related some of them are, even among how diverse or the different species and characters that we have among them. Then also the artificial is often used for practical purposes. So you can group them anyhow based on a criteria that is not the natural way of classifying them, but for the purpose of satisfying the criteria that you've been given, you can use artificial classification to group your organisms based on visible or observable features. So that is that. So it's like using scale. The lizard has a scale, the snake has a scale, but yes, they are all reptiles, but when they come down, they belong to different order and different genus and species. So that could be just a superficial. You will keep the snake and lizard together, work and go together. Then another organism that are not having scale like the amphibians will also be, some do have a little, will also be on a different oh, what is a scale? Okay, so the scale I'm talking about is not the weighing scale, but scale talks about, it depends. We have different types of scale. So the fish, you see, scale is a protective cover on the body of organisms, especially the reptiles. Fishes also do have scales, so you can just type it on the internet anywhere. Scale, you get a better understanding. So there's nothing technical about this. So to explain, it's a protective cover that we have on species of organisms. So it is sometimes dry and wetty, sometimes it's very very smooth in the fishes. So for them is the scale. Sometimes when you buy fish, tilapia and the rest, what you take off is their scale. Lizard also have it. Snake has their own scale. So that of lizard and crocodile look a little bit different, and we have types of them. Some point out, some also points inward. So it's an achievement. You can't hear me clearly. Kindly check your network because others do have a clear voice from me. So someone raise a hand, I'll call you very very soon. Let me finish what I'm doing. So I think I'm done with the natural classification and the artificial classification. So the hand that was up, if it was Hannah, you can talk if you're hanging up. The one that raised the hand, you can unmute your mic and talk. A hand came up. So at this point in time, you have a question you can ask. If you have a question, you are free to ask. No, all the scales are not the same. So please, I explain. Scales, all the scales are not the same. The scale of a fish and that of the lizard are very, very different. You see, the fish has overlapping scales, but and it's easily removable. But that of the lizard and the rest, you can't take it off. It's like it's being embedded in their skin. So it's just a protective cover that sometimes prevents. That of the lizard is waterproof. That of the snake is also waterproof. So most of the times waterproof prevent loss of water, also protect them from mechanical injury, and sometimes also prevent excessive water loss and also conserve heat in the organism. So our purpose here is not about skill, but at least that's a little explanation for you to understand what I'm trying to explain. So we will end the skills thing here. Then next time when I'm talking about the organism, we can talk. But still read more about it and you'll get more information than I've been giving you tonight. Okay, no hand is up. So natural classification, that is the topic for the day. Let's talk about that. Natural classification. If you understand, then later we can be talking about the skills and other things that you want to find out. Okay, let's continue. We have a lot to talk about since there's no hand. I believe you understand. So, process involved in classifying organisms. So, I'm asking the class a question. If you are being asked to classify organism or classify objects in your class, what are the criteria you will follow? So, if you want to look via my screen, you can take one and explain. So, or you can just tell us how the procedure you will follow in sorting out things or items in your classroom or even in your bag or anywhere. Mary, your microphone is on. If you want to talk, let me hear you. Hey, today I'm not having a feel of you. Last time you did very well, very impressive. But today, those on the line, I'm not hearing you. So how are you going to classify organism? The criteria. I don't think Mary wants to talk. Mary's microphone is on, but she's not talking. I'm still waiting for a hand that will go up, then we can talk about this. So for classification, you can't just classify without seeing or identifying what we are coming to classify. So when I put a lot of things in front of you, before you can classify, you will look through. Then you will think about what unite them. What unite them? You two talk. Let me hear your voice. I ask a question. Talk. When I hear your voice, I also make my audible. Is that I think Angel from Poma? Yeah, I think she's the one. All right. So I think I can hear feed from my other device. So those who are still complaining, try to increase the volume of your device or leave and join again. Maybe the network over there is not that good. Let me get feedback from you. If you can't hear my voice, just give me a thumbs down. Those who can hear me to give me a thumbs up. Let me know whether it's a general issue. Yeah, so everyone I'm seeing here can hear my voice. Only person Steven. Steven can hear me. I think Steven can hear me. So it's just about less than 10% of you. Yes, Steven quite can hear. So those who are complaining, you can check it, please get back to us. You can leave and later join. Thank you very much. So let me continue. So when I give you a piece of items to classify, the first thing you do is to look at them. So after looking at them, you sort them out based on something you have observed. So the first step of classification is observation. You observe to get information so that you can identify them well, very, very well. So the first thing that everyone ought to do is to first observe. So as you are making the observation, then you collect data, and that data is on their characteristics. Okay, this one has that, this one has this, do you have that? Okay, this one is very, very similar to this. Then let me keep this one here. Then later you separate them as you move on along the classification line. So that is what you do. You look at their morphological and behavioral data. So it could be genetics. That is genetically on their DNA. What do they have inherent in them? You can talk about their structures and form. What is physical, morphological? We don't talk about their behavior, the way they eat, the way they move. Though they might not look the same in appearance, but they have some characteristics. The way they mate, the way they feed. All of these things are very, very similar. That can be a behavioral trait to classify them. Some of them can be having the same behavior or adaptation, but their morphology will be different. Some have different genetic makeup. These are ways you consider before you can classify them. So after checking all these things, the next thing you can do is compare. So now you've got the information, you compare where and where do they have the similarity, at what point do they have some differences, and how different are their differences. These are some other things that you consider after gathering your data. Then after comparing everything, you sort them out. Then let me keep this one here. All of these have scales, but the scales that I've seen, they are different. So this one has overlapping scale. This one have a scale that point out. This is the type of scale that they have. This one scale is a little bit shiny. This one has that. So although they all have scales, so you can group them that have scales and them that do not have scales. Then you can talk about overlapping scales. Then you can talk about the pointed out scales. Then you can talk about the one that is fused to the skin and the one that lays just on the skin. These are the criteria you can use to differentiate them as you move down and deeper into the classification history. Then you can arrange them hierarchical based on how similar they are generally. Then specifically, you group them into smaller and lower groups. That is the next step. Then after that, you try to check to validate whatever you have done is correct, just to be sure that you have not kept an organism where it's not supposed to be, or there's a better place for it to be placed than where you have initially placed it. That is what you can also do when you have arranged them. So you can use DNA analysis and comparative anatomy. So you are comparing their anatomy. So humans and other animals that are still their mammals, we all have a backbone, so a notochord. So at least that is a comparative anatomy. We are looking at our structures. So the apes, monkeys, and the rest, they have the tailbone and they have a tail. But humans, we have only the caucus. That is a small tailbone over there. So they were saying that at least we have that caucus, those have the caucus, but we don't have the tail itself. So that means that we were not using the tail. So Lamarck's theory of disuse and use of body parts, the humans were not using our tail, so it became extinct. That is in genetics, we will talk about it later, so no more questions over there. But if there is one, maybe later we can discuss when we are done with the topic. So that is a theory that Lamarck also wrong, because we know it will become a vestigial organ, something you don't use it, you lose it. So that was a comparative anatomy on human and the apes phylogeny. Then we can talk about a document. So you can document what you have done so that you can bring it out. Other scientists will validate, criticize it, and make it better or reject it. So you document your scheme of classification. So that's what this man also brought. The one that we are using here, that is the Swedish botanist Carolus Linnaeus, that we are using here currently. So you can describe your taxa and the criteria that you use to classify them under each of the taxa. Then periodically we can review and revise them. So now we have built other one, that is the phylogenetic and cladistic. They are a little bit more detailed than the hierarchical, but still for ease of convenience and ease of understanding, we still hold on to the hierarchical classification. But molecular biologists and molecular historians or analysis classification taxonomists will use more of the phylogeny and the cladistic, as they give a better classification than the hierarchical. So that is how you'll be able to classify your organisms. I'm sure we can also use this when you want to group your things in your wardrobe. What do you do in your closet? You try to observe the things. Let me keep this attire here, you keep them here. So you know, maybe you are putting all your hoodies here, you are putting all your underwears here, you are putting all your casual wears here, you are putting your dinner wears, your suit, your jacket and the rest at a particular place. Then you see the things that so you sort them out. Then you arrange them based on order, how you prefer them. So the ones that you normally use will come closer in the closet or the wardrobe than those that you hardly use. So normally when you check your bag and some where you keep your clothes, you see that those that you normally wear, they are at the top because you've washed them, you keep them at top. You don't take a, you'll be wearing the same clothes for the same time. Hey, this shirt I wear for a long time, this dress is been long that I will, because it has now got to the bottom of your bag or your wardrobe that you will not be using it. So you sort them out. Later you arrange them. Then you are sure, is my watch at the better place has to be? Is my necklace at where it's supposed to be? You do that periodically to be sure that everything that you need is around the closet or the actual place you're supposed to see it. That is how you group your things or you pack your things in your room, your wardrobe, or in your closet. That you always do that, but that is not documented. But in scientific classification, you document it. We follow the system. If it is good, we continue to use it as a system of classifying organisms. At this point in time, if there's a question, you can bring it on board as we move to the major rank. Someone asked a question last week concerning domain and the kingdom. I explained, but today is a time for us to study it cohesively. If there's a question, you can ask. Raise up your hand. I will call you to ask your question if you have any. If not, in the next minute, I'll continue with the major ranks and taxa in classification. I'm still waiting for questioning or hand being raised, but I believe we all do understand. Alright, so Carolus Linnaeus brought a system of classification that we are using now, and that also led to what we talk of as the binomial nomenclature, the system of naming organism, where organisms are given a two-part name, a two-Latin name, one from their genus and one from their specific epithet or their species. And that is how the work of this man. So in this classification, he classified all organisms in the world and them that are yet to be discovered into 5 major kingdoms. But before that, he grouped them into some taxa, and the taxas are 7. Sorry, the taxa are 7. So we have 7 taxa. One is taxon, and the first one is kingdom. Then he talk about phylum, and phylum is also called division. So phylum is the actual name, but division is particularly given to plants. So anytime we're talking about plant, to be more known as like you know what you are talking about. When you reach planty, kingdom planty, you don't say phylum, maybe chlorophyta. You say division chlorophyta, phytophyta, and the rest, because we use division in place of phylum for kingdom planting. But for the other four kingdoms, you are wrong to use division. It's supposed to be phylum. So only plants that will go by division when we are talking about their second taxa, which is their phylum. Then we have class, which is the same for everyone. We have order, then family, genus, and species. So I think there's a mnemonic that I remember we used in JSS our time, which we said can follow, call, order for general speech. I'm sure there are some others. I've heard some other two different mnemonics from different books and students. But if you have one, you can tell us. I heard it, but I've forgotten how they were saying it. So what I will use and I still use is can follow, call, order for general speech, or you can say general species. So that helped me. So if I say king pharaoh, I know kingdom, then phylum become the phylum, call will be the class, order, then family or former is the family, then general is genus, then speech is the species. So that is a better way for you to remember the order. So normally people do know, but they can't arrange it systematically, and that is also a trouble. Let me say they can't arrange it in order chronologically as it is being done, or hierarchically. So that is the seven taxa Carolus Linnaeus brought in classification. Then he also realized that if we have the kingdom, phylum, and the rest, kingdom, we have five kingdoms, which is the kingdom Animalia, kingdom Plantae, the kingdom Fungi, Protoctista, and kingdom Prokaryote or Monera. Although they are five, but he realized that based on the type of cell, we can group them into three. So he realized that based on the type of cell, we can get them that are archaea, or we can say eukaryotes. They are the archaea. Then we can look at the eukaryotes. They are the eukarya. Then we have them that are prokaryotes. They are not actual cells, but they have some characteristics in them, DNA strands in them that can also be independent of their own on their own. And they are the bacteria. At first, it was called eubacteria, that is true bacteria, but now we can call that domain bacteria. So, based on that, we can group the five kingdoms into three domains. The first one is the archaea. That one is not even in the first five kingdoms. That is the bacteria. They don't have their own cell. They are acellulates. They don't have their own cell, but they can live in other cells, make copies of their own DNA whilst they are in other cell, their nucleus. Then we have the prokaryotes. They are cells, but they are not true cells because they lack a membrane bound, a nuclear mount membrane, and some other organelles. So they are able to live on their own, perform their own because of the nucleus that they have, but it is in their cytoplasm, not bounded by a nuclear membrane. So they are called prokaryotes, and they are the bacteria. So archaea is the bacteria. Now the eukarya is the other four kingdoms, the protoctista and the eukarya, because they have a definite nucleus with a membrane bounded it and some other organelles. We can talk about the kingdom fungi, the kingdom plantae, and so kingdom Plantae, Animalia, Fungi, and Protoctista. These four are kept under the domain Eukarya. So that is a domain and a kingdom. So domain is based on the type of cell, and the kingdom is based on a general feature that we'll talk about very shortly. Then we have phylum, then we have class, order, family, genus, and species. So that is the domain and the kingdom. So organisms are first categorized into one of three domains. These are them. Then later we can talk about. So lower organisms typically fall under eukarya domain. Then they are grouped into one of the major kingdoms, such as protista or protoctista. That one is too long. If you can't spell protoctista, just go by protista or protist and you are done. Good to go. Then we have the kingdom fungi. Then we have the plantae or animalia. So that is the domain and the kingdom we have talked about. And I've told you that all these fall under eukarya. The bacteria are the prokaryotes, that will be that kingdom. Then the archaea is for the viruses and the acellular organisms that are not cells. So sometimes we can call them particles, but they become living when they are in another living organism or a living cell. Now, phylum or division for plants. So each kingdom is further divided into phyla. So kingdom Animalia, I believe is 9. Protoctista, they have 9. Some have 3. So fungi have just 3. So that's Basidiomycota, Ascomycota, and Zygomycota. Then we have some have 5 and 7 and the rest. So I remember 9 is for the kingdom Protoctista, which you will look at the Rhizopoda, Celiophora, and the rest very shortly. So each kingdom is further divided into phyla or division for plants and the rest. So, for example, animal kingdom we have Arthropoda, that's the Arthropus. We have the Chordata and some other groupings under the kingdom Animalia. So that is the phylum or the phyla we have under kingdom Animalia. Then we can talk about class and order. So within each phylum or division, organisms can be grouped into classes, and classes can be grouped into order based on their similarities. As we move down the group, we reduce number, but we increase the similarity or their relationship down the taxa. Then we can talk about family and genus. So family and genus, they are the next taxonomic levels, and families are grouped together into related genera. So this one, they become more and more related. So we can talk about species. That is the smallest and most specific taxonomic group in species, and they are very related to the point that they can successfully interbreed to produce fertile offspring. So based on that, we can use the genus name and the species to give the organism a scientific name. And if it's a plant, it is called botanical name. If it's animal, we can say zoological name. But if you don't want any trouble, just say scientific name. Because I remember when we were kids, we thought botanical name was just general. So we thought I would say botanical name of fowl. But that is wrong. Fowl is not a plant. So just say scientific name, or you can say zoological name. So those who are using botanical name for any organism, be careful. Botanical means plant. So if you say botanical name, you are referring to the scientific name for plant. But other organisms will be different. Not botany, but rather zoology or microbiological and the rest. So the scientific name for the cashew is called Anacardium occidental. Now look here, these are the rule about scientific name writing. If you are writing in ink, mostly we don't use italics in writing. Though I know some can write in italics, but it's not advisable if you are writing. If you are using handwritten text, it should be underlined. So the first word for the genus should be capitalized. So capital E, and every other thing should be in lowercase. Then you underline them, but separately. So anacardium accidental. That is to mean that the name that you are writing is not an English word. They are Latin. Most of them are Latinized. If not all, they are all Latinized. So that is why we underline them or we try to italicize them when we are printing them. So in print, we can italicize. When you italicize, there's no need for you to underline. You use one. So there's no need to do both at the same time. One is good to go. So that is how we get a scientific name. Later, you can read more and get a lot of that. Remember, JSS, we had some books that we used to read about them, and we enjoy knowing that Orisa sativa is rice and the rest, Musa sapientum, Theobroma cacao for cocoa. We have a lot of them, so at least try and read more. I'm sure the agri students will get to read much about this, about plants and their scientific names. So let's look at classification of amoeba proteus. So amoeba is a lower organism, a single cell organism, or a unicellular organism, an organism that is made up of only one cell. We have multicellular organisms. Humans, like we have billions of, trillions or sextillions, a lot of cells in our body, billions of them. So when I take just my hair, just one strand of hair, it contains several of cells. When I take just my hair, a lot of cells, even my blood cells, millions of them in just a microliter of blood, just a drop, we can have millions of them. So that talks about the plentiful or multitude of cells that we have in just me as one organism. But the single amoeba is just a cell that we cannot see with the naked eye or only as a speck. That is the primation as a speck only with the eye. They are one organism with just one cell. So that is a cell organism. They are low organisms. So we can talk about the domain. And because it's in the kingdom Protista, it falls under the domain eukarya because it's a true cells. The reason it's under eukarya is it has cells with nuclei. So the domain is based on the cell type and the cell feature. Now, kingdom protista. Why is it in a protista? Protista have a common feature, that is they are unicellular eukaryote. Mostly they are all unicellular organisms. So you are an eukaryote, but your unicellular organ, then it's protista. When we come to fungi, some of them are unicellular, some of them are multi. Example, the yeast is unicellular. Then we can talk about the mushroom, it's multicellular. So that is the branch between the unicellular eukaryote and multicellular eukaryote. Then we can talk about the phylum Amoebozoa. So that is organisms that moves by internal cytoplasmic flow. We call that one cyclosis. I will explain that very shortly when we talk about the movement and how it fits in the amoeba. So that's why it's in the phylum Amoebozoa. Then the class is Tubulinia from the word tubes. So it's a tubular amoeba. It has tubes, or like the body is not just hollow. The organism that can fill into those space. So class Tubulinia for a tubular amoeba. Then the order is Eubamildi. So the order of amoeba is also termed Eubamildi, and the eu there means true. So that means it's a type of a tubulinia, but you can tell it's a true tubulinia. So Eubamildi. Then the family is Amoebidae. That now we are moving closer to the amoeba proteus is because it's a type of an amoeba. Then the genus is amoeba. That is, it belongs to the genus amoeba. Then the species actual name for it is proteus. So based on this, the scientific name for amoeba is the first or name is taken from the genus. Then the second is taken from the species, which is proteus. So we therefore refer to amoeba as amoeba proteus. So that is how we do the natural classification. You take it step by step, you arrange it hierarchically, then you get to know the scientific name of the organism just by using the first name as the genus, then the second name as the species name, then you get it binomial nomenclature. Now, characteristics of taxa. When we say a taxa, what are the characteristics? So the taxa are the kingdom, the phylum, the class, order, family, genus, and species. These are the taxa. We have 7 taxa, but under each taxa there are different groups. So under the phylum we can have 9, the least is 3, and I think some are 12 or so. So that is the ranges in between them depending on the species. Sorry, the kingdom we are talking about. When we go to phylum, we have a lot of them. Class, we can have a lot. Sometimes we can have just 2 under them because we are branching lower. Then some can have a lot of plentiful divisions under each of the taxa. So organisms in a taxa have shared characteristics. So when we are grouping organisms that share characteristics are in the same taxa. So once I'm in the same class with you, so if I enter your class, I can say at least 5 things about you. If you are in the same class with a friend, I know you are taught by the same teacher. I know you sit under the same roof. I know you have the same period, the same time. I know it's the same teacher that will mark your script. These are things I can say about you. And if your teacher is a Michael, then all of you are taught by him as a biology teacher. So that becomes your shared characteristics. But if someone is in a different class where I do not teach, you might not have the same, because when you have biology, they might be reading e-maths. When you are reading economics or business management, they are reading accounting, or maybe they are reading agriculture because they are in a different class. So that is, if you are in the same taxa, it means that we have similar or shared characteristics. And the number of organisms, they decrease down the taxa. As we are going down, we are decreasing, but similarity will increase as we go down. So periodic chemistry, as you are moving down the group, size becomes what, larger, and attraction becomes lower, or ionization energy becomes lower. Later you learn this in chemistry if you haven't done so, maybe later when we come back to school. So that is the same thing. As we are moving down, we are increasing similarity and we are decreasing number. Now, an introduction of binomial nomenclature was also introduced, and that is what I talked to you about, that the genus and the species name are put together, written and underlined separately, or you can italicize them when you are printing it. So that is the characteristic of a taxa. So a taxa, once we're in the same taxa, we have shared characteristics. As I move down, number decreases and characteristics increases. And we can also say organisms that are in the same species can interbreed successfully to produce a fertile offspring. So if you are in the same species, you can produce a fertile offspring. But now humans have been able to be crossing animals. I think you can cross lion and I think tiger. So it could be tigris, and there are names given to them. Two names. It depends on whether the male is a lion or the female is a tiger. So humans have been able to be doing such a thing, but naturally you don't get because they've been modifying it. They can be fertile for some time, but if we leave the animals alone, they might not be able to produce a very fertile offspring because they are not of the same species. So that is the characteristic of a taxa. So I'm moving there straight away. If there's no question, if you have a question, you can ask before we look at the next aspects of our lesson. How to then we look at some few organisms and their scientific names. If you have a question, you can ask at this moment. You can raise up your hand if there's a question. If you understand, to give me a thumbs up. Let me know whether you are still following. If you have a question, you can ask. Yes, please.
Turn off microphone button. Your microphone.
I think someone was trying the microphone. Okay, so if there is no question, okay, Natalia says she do understand. I think normally Natalia joins very very early, so congratulations for being punctual. And I think Chloe is always online, and so I've been taking notes of Pekoma due to I normally see you Gregoria and I think Lillian, but today Lillian haven't talked. I don't know, maybe later she'll come on with some questions and contributions. Okay, let's continue on with this lesson. I think it's very very clear for our understanding. So we are looking at the next chapter, that's identify key features of the binomial creature. So how do we identify key features of the binomial nomenclature? So in EMAT, you learn very shortly that is binomial theorem. Is after what you just did. How do you call it? Is it set, identity, and the rest? You look at binomial nomenclature, then said will come, then you continue your EMAT. So when we say binomial, from the word bi means two, nomia from that is two, then nomenclature is a naming system. So nomia from the word numerical, so binomial nomenclature, so just two names. So nomenclature is a naming system. So it's a binomial nomenclature is a naming system which combines two Latin names which are taken from the genus and the species. So for example, we humans, we are referred to as Homo sapiens. So Homo saying then sapiens, that is our species name. So humans, so please, when we were kids, I think we thought that the white are in a different species. No, we are the same species. Either you are white, a Latino, an African American, any other Hispanic, Hispano person, we are all the same species. That's why we can successfully mate and produce a fertile offspring. Though those people will be either mulatto, we will say half caste in some other dialect or renditions. So we are the same species. So we are Homo sapiens. Either you are American, a Ghanaian, Tanzanian, or Ivorian. We are all humans and we remain in the same species. Just that we have different genetic makeup and physical appearances. So this system was introduced by the Swedish botanist Carolus Linnaeus, which I've explained that we can call him Carl Linnaeus, but the renowned name is Carolus. So better go by this name than the Carl Linnaeus. So that was in the 18th century, 1708 to 1778. So he lived 70 years to see the work, and for us to see the work that he had for us to use. So the two bad names are as I've told you, they are to be italicized or you underline them. So if you are typing, you can make it italics, or you can make it underline, fine. But when you are writing, please, I know some of us can write italicized by putting the pen on inside this in between the middle finger and the ring one, but don't do that when you are writing. Just underline it them separately. So the first name is capitalized and the rest are writing in small word or small letters, sorry. So organisms usually given a three-part name. Some organisms are also given a three-part name. So we look at the dog, that is Canis lupus familiaris, and there's a reason because there's a sub-genus that we give them. That is why some organisms do have three Latin names. Sean, keep the hand up a little. I will invite you to ask your question very shortly. So normally it's just two names, but some like the dog and I think the goat has one organism you see very shortly. They are privileged to have three names, but they are very very few. So in such instance, so let me read something here. In some cases, the organism may have been domesticated. So when they are domesticated, we can give them these three names. In such instance, the organism is usually given a three-part name. The first name is the genus, the second is the species, and the last is the subspecies because they are domesticated. So let's look at some examples down here. So those hands that I have, don't worry, I will invite you. So the chicken that we normally take, the fowl, is what? Gallus domestica. So we could have just said Gallus domestica, but because it has been domesticated and normally they look just like the wild one, we refer to the domesticator as Gallus domestica. So sometimes some books can just write Gallus domestica, but if you want to go strictly, it should be a three name, Gallus domestica. Example, the goat is domesticated, so we call it Capra egagros hicus. Then the sheep is Ovis aris. So this name is normally not actually used. Then we have the Canis lupus familiaris, the rhesus monkey. We have Macaca mulata. Then we have Homo sapiens as men. So humans, we don't have a third one. So those that are blanked, we, although so I say we are domesticated, humans are domestic already. So rhesus monkey have domesticated them, but they were not privileged to get a third name. Sheep too, humans haven't given it a third name, so just Ovis aris, though it's domesticated. But these three, the chicken, the goats, and the dog, they have been given a third name, that is the Canis lupus familiaris. That's from the canine family, that's the dogs, or let me say the wolf and other animals. That is their scientific name. Now I'll pause. Chloe, your hand came up, and another hand also was raised. So those that raised their hand, kindly bring it up back. Then you ask your questions. I can't see any hand up, but I think I saw Harriet and Chloe. For yours, I saw it. If you have a question at this point in time, you can ask your question. Please, if you can hear me, ask your questions. Question time. Any question that you have, what you don't understand, what you do understand, but you want to get a better understanding, ask your questions now for a clearer understanding. Alright, I'll continue. If your hand is raised, I will pause and allow the person to ask the question. So let's look at some crops and their scientific names. So cassava or manioc is called Manihot esculenta. So at least you can be trying to put this one at time. You take some books. We have some small book. Okay. Someone is asking if we can explain the binomial nomenclature well. I will try and do explain it for you. So binomial nomenclature, as explained, is a system of naming in which organisms are given a two-part name. So for instance, let me look at the person that asked the question. So Harriet Osubuatin, very good. You see Harriet, you have three names. Most of us have two names. I, for instance, I have three names as you. So I've seen a name here, Emmanuel Danso. So you see Emmanuel Danso, it's very hard enough to find someone called Emmanuel Danso, though it do happen. But Emmanuel, you can move to a class and you can have about 3 or 5 Emmanuel. But to get two Emmanuel Danso is a little bit rare. not common as having Emmanuel or someone called Danso. So Carolus Linnaeus said, let's give organisms names. But just one name can make it confused. So let's take two names and give it to them. So your first name and your family name. So the name is Latinized. So the first one is from the organism's genus. That is the family name. So if I hear anyone called Danso, I know that he's from the family of Mr. Danso and maybe Mrs. Danso. So we can have Emmanuel Danso in the family. We can have Gabriel Danso and maybe Ivania Danso or any other female name. So I think one lady chatted me. She's called Patricia Jessie. So maybe, and I think the father or grandfather was Emmanuel Jessie. She's called Patricia Jessie. If there's another brother there, maybe Michael Jessie. If I was to be in the family, I would have been Michael Jessie. Why? The Michael is my first name, and the Jessie is the surname for that family. I happen to be in a Poache family, so I am Michael Do, but my surname is Poache, and my brother is Daniel. His surname remains Poache. I have a kid sister. Her name is Christabel Frimpoma, and she has another surname, the same name for the family, Poache. Have you seen it? So we are giving a two-part name. One is taken from the genus or the general name for the family. There was a friend of mine, they always I used this as an example. In their family, they are all Nemo, a lady. So if one guy went there and said, I'm looking for Nemo, and they were just looking at their faces because they were confused. All of us are Nemo. The father is Nemo, the mother is Nemo, sisters, everyone is Nemo. So which of the Nemos are you looking for? So later the person have to find out. So sometimes when you come, they will look at your age and they will look at your access and they will know the Nemo you are looking for. Whether it's my classmate Nemo Nathaniel, the sister Vera, Henry, or the kid sisters over there. So when they see your age, they can identify the Nemo that you are looking for, whether it is Nathaniel, Erica, or the other Henry and the other siblings. So based on that, to if I go there and I say I'm looking for Nathaniel, they will easily know that that is my friend, that's my classmate, I'm coming for him, not Vera or Erica or any other person in the family. So that's why they brought the two names. Let's bring the genus name and also the species, that's the specific name of you. But as I was mentioning, I have three names. So some organisms also are lucky enough to have three names, and the reason is some of them are domesticated. So as you can see on my screen, we have the cassava, sorry, we have the dog, that is Canis lupus domestica, sorry, Canis lupus familiaris, and we have the chicken, Gallus domestica, and the goat is Capra and Gagos hecus. So for instance, my first name is the Michael, but I have another name which is Ado, and that is either my other name or my middle name. So the genus name is Boache because in my family everyone is Boache. Then my first name is Michael. I'm the only Michael in the family as it stands now. And I'm not sure to be another Michael unless maybe I will name my son Michael or maybe my daughter Michael. But as it stands now in my family, I'm the only Michael in the nuclear family. But I have another name which is like my subspecies, that is the Ado. And my sister has another name which is the Frimpoma, that she is called, that's my grandmother's name. So her first name is Christabel, that is she's the only Christabel in the family. Now the general name for us is the Boache, and she has another name that will be the domesticated name given or named after our grandmother. That is Frimpoma. So she has three names. So my sister that as Harriet Owusu Boateng, looking at your name, I can suppose either the Boateng or Owusu. I'm not too sure. But I could say the Harriet is your first name. For that one, no two ways about that. And if I'm not wrong, the Owusu could be your surname. Probably your father is Mr. Owusu. And the Boateng could be a name that you were given to your grandmother or maybe is a family member in the family. So you are having three scientific names. That is Harriet Owusu Boateng. So if you are taking one out, you are being Harriet Owusu or just Harriet Boateng. That is your family name that was given by your father or your father's surname and that of your first name, Harriet. So I'm sure Harriet, you should understand it very, very well. So nomenclature is just a naming system that is binomial. So it's a two-part naming system that organism have been given. I'm sure your question has been answered. If you can unmute your mic, hear a question, you can ask. You can also type it in the comment section. Once I see it, I will move there and explain to you. If you have a question, you can ask. I think I heard some reactions, some pop-ups, so I wanted to see whether you guys understood or not. So I'm sure, as the way I've explained, most of you do understand it very, very well. Thank you very much, Chloe. Very good. So I think they are all in affirmation that you do understand. Stay quiet and here today. I haven't heard your voice. Harry, thank you very much. I think you do understand very well. Any other question you can ask, or we continue today's lesson? All right, let me move on. If you have a question, you can ask. You can put it in the message section. I will go and read it. Then we continue. So these are some for your peruse. At least for cocoa, you should know by now. Rice, you should have known by now. So cassava is manihot esculenta. Then we have the maize, a simple zea maize. Then rice or raisin sativa. Shea butter is vetilaria paradoxa. Then cocoa is theobroma cacao. I talk about garlic and onion the other time. So onion is allium cepa. Then garlic is allium sativa. So it's just like the rice. Rice or raisin sativa, but garlic is allium, ALLIUM sativa. So that is the scientific name of some organisms here. Then I think periplanet. Okay, a hand is up. Harriet also parting. You can ask your question now. I think now you want to speak for us to hear you.
Well, please, does it mean rice and garlic they are related?
No. Okay, no, not this because very good. I like that. If we are not in the same, how you call it, genus, we cannot be in the same species because the species are the genus. Have you got it? Like someone is in science class. We have science one, science two. So the fact that you are in as three and I'm in science 3 doesn't mean that because of the 3 we are in the same class. Yes, we are having the 3 is similar, but my 3 is in science 3 and your 3 is in arts. So the 3 then means that you are just the third division or the third class for the arts and I'm the third. So for the sativa, let me do a quiz if I get a meaning of the sativa. I have forgotten. So all of them have a meaning in the, how do you call it, the Latin rendition. So let me give and get sativa, whether there's a better meaning. So sativa is a widely consumed form of something. So it could be cannabis. Okay, that's cannabis sativa. So I believe sativa will be something that is consumed. So if I get the answer, I'll just give it to you right now. So does not mean that they're the same genus because this is allium, this one is how do you call it, oraza. So very different genus. Yes, that the sativa is a common characteristic that will be among them. So I'll just find it out and tell you very shortly if it's different from what I just explained to you. Any other question? Yeah, what you can ask your question. If they have it that way, then it's the same organism. So they can have up to genus. But when we rank the species, that is where the separation will come. If they have the same, then it means it's the same organism. It's like if you are classifying you, Yanima Waten, and they are classifying me, Michael Adopache, since we are all humans, we will end up as Homo sapiens. But since we are not all, then it's like, oh, let me them. They will come from kingdom, the same phylum, that is Chordata. They will come to the same class, that is Mammalia. They will come to the same order. Then they will come out till once we rate the species, we now separate them together. So please, you can't have the same. If you have the same, then it's the same organism or the same type of organism that we are talking about. Yeah, very good. So I think the sativa could be having a long stem and a narrow leaves. So any 10 organism that have something that characteristics, that is how we arrange them. So sativa means cultivated. So that is okay. I've got a better meaning here. So sativa means cultivated. So it's a specific epithet which means cultivated, and that is so. I'm sure maybe at that time because they use what maybe they were cultivating or the yam, they were doing that, and also the allium sativum, the garlic. At that time, maybe I'm sure they were cultivating that much. There are some plants that we don't cultivate them; they just come as weed, and we take their herbs. but I'm sure maybe at that time the rice was done on a large scale, and also the garlic was being planted intentionally or cultivated. So the sativa over there means cultivated. So the oreza and the allium will be the game changer. So the sativa oreza means rice, so it means cultivated rice, and I'm sure the allium will also stand for the Latin name for onion. Sorry, let me say onion, and that garlic, the bulb species. So that's the meaning of the sativa. That generally means cultivated. So I think Yani Mabwati that asked that question. That's a little understanding of just search on sativa for you. Any other question you can ask? So if there's time, we can talk about amoeba proteus today. Then we continue with the other organisms. You can ask a question, something you don't understand. If there's a question, you can put it in the comment section, or you can raise up your hand and you ask me. No question at the questioning part. So I checked for the allium. Allium means a bulbous plant of the genus that includes so bulbous. So it is a bulb like. So that's why onion is a bulb, and also the garlic is a bulb. So the allium is a bulb. Then sativa means cultivated. Then the sipa also means something else. So if you have time, you can be doing all this and you understand it. If we are to understand the Latin, biology becomes so easier. That's sometimes we try to bring a better understanding of these terms when we do come across them. That will make the study of biology very appreciative and exciting. If there's a question you can ask as I try to get the CPA meaning, maybe in Latin or whichever language that it was being transcribed from. Okay, I think there are no questions now, so we can continue on our lesson. Alright, so okay, hand just came up. Is that Harriet? I don't see the name. Will you Harriet? You can ask another question.
Sir, please, when you are naming the organism,
Yeah.
the scientific name, does it always have to start with the genotype?
Yes, always that. Always that. If you change it, you are wrong. Even if you don't change it and spell it wrong, you are wrong. So go by the order. So it's like the Americans sometimes they name. So please ask from your parents and be sure how you write your name. If Michael Ado is different from Ado Michael, Boache Michael is different from Michael Boache. So they are very peculiar about the arrangement. Most of the times they will say first name first. I remember when with the JSA, they will say your same name first. So you're writing Boache, Michael, Boache, Ado, Michael, and the rest. So now I've written my name in one order. Michael, Ado, Boache. Michael is my first name. Ado is my middle name or my other name. Then you know that the Boache is my last name. So depending on the criteria for filling the form, if you ask me of my first name, it's always the Michael. My surname has always been Boache, and my other name or middle name is the Ado. So if I'm writing only two names, it's Michael Boache. If I'm to add the other or my middle name, then the other will get a space in the form. So it is law, it is the rule, always genus name first, and the first word is capitalized, and the rest are in lowercase. You separate them, so you underline them separately. If you underline them together too, you are wrong. So rules are rules here. Thank you for the question. I'm sure someone who understands better, you know how serious is it to cause a mistake when you're writing the names. So I just searched for SIPA, and the SIPA means onion. So as you said, so sativa means cultivated, so cultivated bulb plant, and the SIPA is a Latin word for onion. So most of these things, because we don't understand the Latin, we find it difficult. This is a very big name, but we would have appreciated it if our great grandfathers would have done classification by now. It will be in tree for us to understand very very well, but that was not for us. All right. Any other question? Maybe a hand came up and I didn't see. We have 16 minutes to the end of the lesson, so let me just talk about this. Unfortunately, today we can't talk about amoeba because if we start, we can't finish. But At least we have some 3 or 4 subsections to talk about, and so that tomorrow we can start. Tuesday, God willing. Then we finish on Wednesday the organisms, our long-awaited amoeba. We will talk about it and appreciate this organism. So one time, I think one class, some students, I remember Georgette was there. We took water. I think Radia too was there. We picked some water from a gutter. We saw some organisms over there. When school resumes, we will try and do that in the lab. So we will see some of these organisms under the slide. Yes, Steven, today, okay, you are welcome. Ask your question, Steven Cotton.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Why do scientists use chimpanzee to compare humans?
Okay, very good. So let me, okay, now stay on the line. Steven, stay on the line. Unmute your microphone. So, do you agree with them that do such comparison? Do you agree with them? Oh, Steven, I want you to come online, then we can interact. I'm sure you know the answer, but at least. Okay, so if I put human and a lion and a human and the chimpanzee, and I say group them, which two of them will you keep in the same group and why?
Use the person again.
Like I have 3 organisms: the human, the chimpanzee that you talk about, and a lion. Group them. How will you group them? Will you group them in 3 groups, or to be 2 groups, or just one group? How will you group them?
There are two groups.
So, oh, please, you can keep the mic on. I think we are surrounding is not noise, so just keep it on. How will you group them and why?
Based on their characteristics and how they communicate to others.
Okay, so group one, which organism or organisms will be there?
Homo sapiens, which is humans.
And what organism again?
And chimpanzee, I don't know why it is.
Yeah, I don't know why, but so let's make it simple. You see, there are some semblances. When you see that the white sometimes they pick monkey and they dress them, and when you look at them, they look just like a human being, just like they are so hairy, and they can't stand upright as we can do. I've forgotten. There is a one some researchers, a man and a woman in the I think overseas. I don't know whether in the UK or in the US. They were trying to do a research to find out how animals, or let me say, they can communicate. That is, sorry, how they can train these monkeys and apes to learn human communication. So they brought this monkey, I think that maybe 3 or 4 months, and their their son, boy child was around the same month. So they were just a week or a month at pace. So they brought them together and they tried to, let me say, raise them together. So to see how they can train such an animal to pick human learning development. At some time, I think 4 years or so, they stopped their research. The reason they realized that their son was learning things from the animal too was learning some human behavior, but they realized that the human was learning more of the animal-like features than the animal learning human. So the animal was able to learn 21 languages. If you say, like now, you can see on TikTok and some other media, people talking to their dogs. There's one Nigerian guy, I've forgotten the name. He can talk the animal, he will pray. He called the animal Ajoke. At first, I was getting my FYP, but now I normally don't go there to see him. So he will say, let's pray. The animal will be there. Don't eat the food. The animal will not eat it. He will come. Sometimes they'll be talking to the animal, and I think one Ghanaian also, one guy who has been doing that on Facebook. So we see they are learning. So they were trying to do such a research, and the animal was able to communicate in some way. But they realized that their son was doing something that was undesirable to them, because as we are learning, the son also learned from the animal. So they saw that their son was yelling and making noise like a monkey would do when it wants to take something. So the child was very, very aggressive and those things. So they had to stop the research and go. So we see there is a lot of similarity between us and them. That is why some are saying that human emerged from apes, which I think defies the theory, the law of creation, or let me say the story of creation. If you believe in that in the Bible, and I'm sure in the Quran too, there will be something like that over there. So, Charlie, Stephen, they do that because we are very, very related. We are all mammals. When we come to our genus, we look at our head, how it looks like. Ask your question. No, I didn't get the question well. I never said that. I said we are very, very similar. Even you and your sister or your brother, you don't have the exact genetic material. Do you get it? So if you are matching even twins, though they are very, very similar, but no two twins will have the same fingerprint marking. So they look very, very similar in their genetic coding, but there's a little bit of differences. So we don't have the same genes as them. But I'm talking about similarities. Look at your head, look at its head, look at your body shape, your physique, just like them. Just that they cannot stand very well. They have a tail, we don't have. So if you are grouping them, we look very, very similar. So at the genus part, we part away. Are you getting it? At the genus part, we part away, and they have their own scientific name, or let me say their classification. So we are not very, very similar. We are similar to the chimpanzee and the apes more than we are to lion, because lion we just depart at the class stage, but for them we come close to genus, then species we are very, very different. Please, I hope you get the reason why they keep us. When we learn genetics, you might appreciate it better why we do that. So, Charlie, we are all animals, just that we are higher and larger animals than the normal one that we do talk about. So, I don't know whether Steven, you are okay, or there's another follow up question. Okay, so that's the reason why. And please don't feel offended as a human being when they say we are very similar or related to them. Yes, we are. We are very, very similar to them, but we are different in our own way. Any other question? If there's a question, you can please ask. You can raise up your hand if there's a question. You can ask us for better understand. If your hand is up and I haven't seen it, you can raise your. You can just unmute your mic and talk. All right. So factors that influence binomial nomenclature names assigned to organism. So one is scientific accuracy. For example, the binomial name given to the giant panda was later changed from the raccoon family to the bear family. So they realized that the giant panda refer like re, resemble much of a bear than a raccoon. So now they give them a specific name. Some organisms' names will do change. Sometimes they say that no, it's better fit here than that place. So they try to revise it as often as sometimes you revise. Sorry, you try to change your closet and how you arrange things in your wardrobe or in your room. You try to create that uh, environment. So consistency and clarity in communication. So that's for consistency. So this allows values from different regions to communicate effectively. So once I say Homo sapien, we know it's human. So some will say Nipa in tree, some will say human, some will say is it Nipa Agbeto? Men also in never is Agbeto. I don't know the other Agbeto is the human and the menu means bad. So at least different language will have different names for all these organisms. Then international acceptance. When we say Canis lupus familiaris, we know we are talking about the dog. When we say Oryza sativa, sorry, yes, dog, Oryza sativa, we know we are talking about rice. Allium cepa, we are talking about a bulbous onion. Allium sativa, we are talking about cultivated bulb, that is garlic. So these are the criteria and cultural and historical norms and origin. So some organisms are named maybe Americana. So for instance, there we will learn about the butter. Sorry, not the butterfly, the cockroach. We have the Blatta orientalis, oriental from the Oriental. So we have Oriental countries. Then we have another one, the popular one that we call the Periplaneta Americana. There is some leaf that is called here. It's even here, Ethiopia. So some are called Ethiopica. I've forgotten that plant, but we have some. Yes, Xylopia Ethiopica is here. Very good. So you can see cultural and historical norms. So for instance, as I said that we have Periplaneta Americana. They say it was first discovered in America. I mean, I don't know which part of it, but it's called Periplaneta Americana, the cockroach. Though we have Blatta orientalis and another species. So for instance, the Ethiopian bamboo is named Oxytenanthera abyssinica, and Abyssinia is the former name. Like Ghana was called Gold Coast some years to come, then became Ghana. The Abyssinia is the former name or historical name of Ethiopia. So it was named Oxytenanthera abyssinica. We could have said Ethiopica, or maybe Abyssinia. If it was Ethiopia at that time, we could have called it by that name. But we call that Ethiopian bamboo Oxytenanthera abyssinica, which means it was found in what? First in Ethiopia. That is how we do name them. Some are also for taxonomic revision. For example, when they discover new species, so the African pepper is called Xylopia ethiopica. That is the name. It was found in the reference of. So, for example, discovery of new species of flowering plant, that's the Ethiopian or African pepper, in the reference of Ghana, led to the adoption of the binomial name Xylopia ethiopica to reflect its status as a distinctive species. So sometimes that's how we just see a Panthera leo. So I was saying, so binomial name for lion is Panthera leo, and that follows this thing. So that is a scientific name for such organisms. If you have a question, you can now significance of the binomial nomenclature. If I come to class and I say maybe Mabel, we can have two Mabels there. If I say, what other name should I say? If I say maybe there's some class you can have two, maybe blessings. Maybe you can have two blessings on the line. We can have two Jasi. But when I say Patricia Jasi, it could be only one person. We can have a lot of Boateng on the line. We can have a lot of Steven in your class. But when I say Steven Boateng, I'm sure it will point directly to our brother here. So that is the one important to the binomial nomenclature for easy identification of the organism. And so on. The taxonomic rules ensure the organisms with shared characteristics are placed in a common or the right taxa. So numbers will decrease down the taxa, but similarities will increase. So they are, let me say, inverse. As this one increases, the other one also decreases. Now, binomial nomenclature ensures uniformity in naming and identifying organism. So it helps in unity as we try to identify the organisms. And as I've said, it makes identification easier and communication as well very easy among scientists. We have 2 minutes to the end of the lesson. At this point, if there is any question, you can ask. So God willing, tomorrow we are good to start the life processes of amoeba proteus. So to please kindly read, you prepare your questions. Those that you can search, you do so, get better understanding. Those that you don't understand, you can ask tomorrow when we are live. Sorry, Tuesday when we are live, 7:30 to 9 o'clock p.m. Okay, Harriet, your hand is up. I think today Harriet and Stephen are the only two that have talked. Lillian, I haven't heard their voice today. I don't know whether Divine Chra couldn't join today. Chra too used to talk a lot. Esther Kumache, it's been some time that I saw her on our meeting. Okay, Harriet, you can ask your question.
What is the logical name for a tiger?
It's Panthera tigris, and Paus is the Panthera. But I think I was reversing it, taking the Leo first for some of them. So all of them are Panthera. If there's any other question, you can ask. All right. If there's no question, I would like to end it right now. So it has been stated that the genus is Panthera. So for lion is Panthera leo, and for the tiger is Panthera tigris, which at one point in time I was calling it Leo Tigris and Leo Pantera. So thank you for trying to bring us to order so that I don't confuse others by saying Leo Pantera. It's rather Pantera Leo and Pantera Tigris. Okay, so if there are no questions, I would like to end the session for tonight. God willing, Tuesday we will talk about the life processes of amoeba proteus. Thank you very much for joining Harry Toast, Stephen Quatin, and everyone that joined to make today's studies a success. Eric Dalcon, I see you. So God willing, tomorrow, Tuesday, sorry, I'll be saying tomorrow. Okay, so you can go later, I'll edit this one and post it online for your perusal. Have a very good night. Thanks for being with us for tonight. Bye to you.